Hello, and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve, and today we're taking a look at why bench boosting in double game week 29 might be optimal. Now, to timestamp this, I'm recording on the 1st of March. It's currently 2 p.m. here in New Zealand, so it's the early hours of the 1st of March over in the UK. We are now aware that Liverpool will be blanking in game week 28 because the Fulham vs Leeds FA Cup result is in. Fulham have won that 2-0, and that means that Liverpool would have no opponent in game week 28, and so therefore they blank. That is the reason why this week's video is a little bit late. I normally record on a Monday, but I thought this result would probably be quite pivotal to a lot of FPL managers out there, as they've probably just loaded up on Liverpool assets for the double in the blank game week 25, double blank, blank double, whatever you want to call it. So before we go directly into the strategy around bench boosting in game week 29, I thought I would very briefly go over my reasons as to why I opted to play with only 10 men in game week 25 and save one of my 2 free transfers. So I went into game week 25 with 2 free transfers. I spent one on going from KDB to Salah, and I held on to the other free transfer, which flabbergasted a few people in the comments on last week's video. So I thought I would just very briefly go into why I opted to do that. I did actually write up some pretty lengthy reasons in the comments last week, and so a few of you might have already caught up on that, but just for those of you who are new to the channel or haven't been following me very closely so far, I wanted to save one of my free transfers for the transfer plans that I had already tentatively lined up. I went through half those plans in the video last week. I went up to a point where I kind of stopped at game week 27 and 28, because past that point it was going to be a bit of speculation, as we weren't fully sure what the fixtures were going to be, but I was able to plan out what was likely going to happen, and it came down to the fact that I really wanted to hold Luke Shaw. He was the only man that I was likely going to remove from my team in order to field a full 11. Botman was going nowhere. They were already confirmed to play in game week 28 and had the double in game week 29. And although they do play Man City this week, they've actually got Wolves 27, Nottingham Forest 28, double in 29, Brentford 31, Aston Villa Brentford game week 30 and Aston Villa in game week 31. And so with that run of fixtures, I didn't want to get rid of, obviously I wasn't going to sell Trippier at all, because I would almost certainly be buying him back, and buying him back for a more expensive price. But similarly with Botman, I've built a little bit of value up in there, but his run of fixtures was overall better than Luke Shaw's. So Luke Shaw was actually the only man that was potentially on the chopping block for me. I was only looking at the likelihood of bringing in probably Trent for Luke Shaw. I was not looking at bringing in Gakpo or Nunez for game week 25, because I actually had Jota down to start that Crystal Palace fixture. Some of you eagle-eyed people would have noticed that I mentioned that in one of the comment threads last week. I wasn't sure who he was going to start for, but I was pretty certain that Jota was going to start in the Crystal Palace match. I thought it was going to be for Gakpo at a push, but it actually turned out that it was Nunez who sat out, whether that was through injury or whatever, or choice. We're not entirely sure, but Nunez didn't even make it to the ground. So I was looking at potentially Shaw out and Trent in, but with the idea in mind that I was almost certainly going to be buying Luke Shaw back, and if I was going to be buying Luke Shaw back, I was basically putting it down to Trent had to score between 8 to 10 points in order to buy him for game week 25 and then sell him, buy Luke Shaw back in a future game week, so that there is already the 8 points. But I was also actually taking into account that I've had Shaw for a while. I would be losing quite a bit of value in Luke Shaw if I did sell him. And so I was happy for Trent to score 8 to 10 points. 8 points I would have been bang on equal in terms of overall points. 10 points I was allowing the extra 2 points just for the difference in value. Now, I don't really know exactly how to calculate value versus points in your team, but with the obvious loss of funds in Luke Shaw and my future plans for actually who I want to buy in future game weeks, it was looking like I would happily lose 10 points out on Trent Alexander-Arnold. Obviously, we are midway through game week 25. Trent still has another game to play. He's currently sitting on a clean sheet, so I think he's on about 6 points. So he's about tracking. I thought they would get 1 clean sheet through the double. Could work out that I actually end up a little bit down on the deal, but we will see. The additional reasons that I really wanted to hold on to Luke Shaw is Eriksson won't be back until about game week 35 or so, which means Luke Shaw will be on the majority of set pieces up until that point. When Shaw plays at left back, he's got great attacking threat. As you can see in the Carabao Cup final, he set up Casemiro's goal from the free kick. However, when Luke Shaw does go to centre back, he's an absolute bonus point magnet, and the man is nailed on. So we don't have to worry about what a lot of managers out there are dealing with the likes of Man City defensive assets. Luke Shaw, you just chuck him in, you know he's going to play. And apart from the blank in game week 25 and the Liverpool fixture that I will have to play him for this week, he's actually got a great run of fixtures past that point. So in game week 27, that's the calendar. Game week 27, he's coming up against Southampton at home. He does blank in game week 28, which I was already aware of and had already planned for, which I will take you through in the transfer planning section of this video. He doubles in game week 29. Game week 30, he's got Everton at home, and game week 31, he's got Nottingham Forest away. So, again, great fixtures. This is the reason why I said I would almost certainly be buying Luke Shaw back. And the only disadvantages that I could see in holding Luke Shaw through the game week 25 blank was, A, he blanks in game week 28, but I have plans to negate that. He blanks in game week 25, like I've already said, but I didn't see a different defender who I thought was worth the -8 points to sell Shaw and then have to buy Shaw back at a more expensive price. And the other disadvantage was that I would have to play Luke Shaw this week in game week 26 against Liverpool, but I managed to balance that out by, well, pretty much everyone's buying Trent for this spot, and so most managers will be playing Trent against Manchester United in game week 26. And so for all those reasons, I decided to play with 10 men. I'm currently sitting on 34 points. We'll go through a review at the end of the video. The average points is 39. I don't think these averages actually take into account the hits that are being taken, similar with all the standings in your various leagues out there. If you go and have a look at all the total standings, it will give you the total points, but it won't include the hits you've taken for this week. So there's quite a few people in the leagues that I'm in sitting on like 36 points, 37 points. They're looking like they're actually doing better than me this week, but they're actually on -4s or -8s, and so overall they're actually sitting a little bit worse off. I did say a few videos ago as well that I would probably score less than average in this game week, planning to go in with 10 men, and I was more than happy to do that because I should make those points up in game week 26 and forward. So that's all the reasons why I played with 10 men. We will go on to my plans to bench boost in game week 29. Now, this overall strategy, I don't know if many people have actually been talking about this. I haven't seen any other content creators talking about this strategy yet. Some of them are talking about bench boosting in game week 29, but by in order to do that, they're planning to wildcard in game week 27 in order to set up that bench boost in 29. And if they are planning to do that, they're also even chucking in the potential use of a free hit in game week 28. Now, my optimal strategy involves no use of a wild card or a free hit before game week 29. So we're going to get to a bench boost team in 29 without using any wild cards, any free hits, and maybe only one hit up until game week 29. I might take two. It will depend on a couple of things. So this strategy obviously relies on the fact that I already have some very good key players for game week 29, and that's why I think this bench boost in 29 is going to be optimal, at least for my team. So the players that I already have is Ward as my second keeper. He's got a great fixture in game week 29. It's probably his best chance of getting a couple of clean sheets. He's at home, away to Crystal Palace and at home to Aston Villa. Aston Villa have been doing a little bit better with their attack as of late, but that looks like a great set of double fixtures for Ward, which pretty much everyone has as their second keeper out there and across the FPL landscape. And so because you already have that player in place, that's one of your 4 bench spots already taken care of. I already own Marcus Rashford and Luke Shaw, obviously, because I've just done a segment about that. I already have Trippier and Botman as well. They all have pretty strong doubles in game week 29. The other reason a bench boost looks quite viable in game week 29 is actually something that Nathan Smith 8898 or 8897 who commented in the thread last week. We actually had a big discussion about some options for movements forward, and he noted that the single game weekers in 29 are actually very strong, and he is 100% correct. It's actually the reason why I want to bench boost rather than free hit. So Haaland has a great single game week fixture in 29 against Liverpool at home. Sorry, Liverpool fans, but I think Man City's absolutely going to do the business in game week 29. I'm actually thinking that Manchester United are going to do some damage to Liverpool this week in game week 26 as well. But free hitters in game week 29 will have to make the decision of whether or not to include Haaland in their teams. Also, Harry Kane has a way better single game week fixture than Haaland. That is Everton away. And there is also a very strong possibility that Tottenham will get a double dropped into game week 29. That Southampton fixture that looks like it's going to blank in game week 28 could very easily be switched into that game week 29, which would be a double for Kane of Everton away and Southampton away. We probably won't know that until the FA Cup matches tomorrow, where Tottenham play Sheffield United and Southampton have Grimsby Town. If both Tottenham and Southampton both lose their fixtures, then there will be a fixture for Tottenham in game week 28, and obviously Southampton will be playing in 28. But if either one of them win, both these teams will blank in game week 28, and I think that will be the point at which the Premier League will schedule in that Tottenham versus Southampton fixture in game week 29. So they kind of have to wait for this because there is a possibility still that that game could potentially be played in 28, but I think it will probably be a blank and we will have a double for Tottenham and Southampton in game week 29. So free hitters will probably jump onto Tottenham. If this does happen, especially Kane will be very high on the agenda for a lot of free hitters. But if it doesn't happen, then Harry Kane is actually a very strong single game week player that week, and his run of fixtures, apart from potentially blanking in game week 28, is amazing too. Wolves away this week, Nottingham Forest at home the week after, probable blank in 28, probable double in 29 to Everton Southampton, They then have Brighton at home and Bournemouth at home in 30 and 31. And so Harry Kane was definitely staying in my team through game week 25 for that epic run of fixtures. Now, the other thing that we should probably bring up is I've created what looks like what I would say would probably be the best double game week players in game week 29 to choose from, but this assumes that there was no Spurs double, because I made this last week. This was part of my planning in order to bench boost. The best doublers I could see is probably Kepa and net. Luke Shaw's got a double, James has got a double, Trippier's got a double, Botman's got a double. We know the Brighton assets are doubling, so probably McAllister, Estupiñán, Mitoma, March will all be high on the agenda. Other United assets would be Rashford's got a great double, Fernandes, obviously good double. The likes of James Maddison at Leicester, I've already mentioned that Ward has got a good double on my bench, but Maddison will probably be high on the agenda for most free hitters in 29. An outsider, Bowen at West Ham, is looking like he's got a pretty good double, which would be against Southampton at home and Newcastle at home. He might make a few free hit teams. The two best strikers that I can see right now is João Felix and Tony with doubles. There aren't too many forward options in terms of double game week players in game week 29. Like I said, Haaland's got a single. Kane has currently got a single. All the Arsenal assets have currently got a single against Leeds at home. That won't change, and so it could be Nketiah up front, but again, Nketiah's just missed out. Jesus is due back sometime early March. We don't exactly know when that is yet, and so he might be a bit iffy to chuck into the squad. And so free hitters are going to actually have a very tricky time figuring out, are we just going to completely load up on doublers and just ignore all the single game weekers, or which single game week players are going to be in the team? And so when I went through my transfer planner in order to set up this bench boost in game week 29, I was looking at this free hit team in 29 to kind of compare my bench boost team versus this free hit team and what that would look like. So that's the first major advantage for bench boosting in 29. I already own most of the players, and I have been planning for the last couple of weeks in order to hold on to those players for that in future. Now that might not work out as well for those of you out there, and so I'll go through a couple of the other really key advantages that I see to bench boosting in 29. And one is that it unlocks the wildcard. So if you do not wildcard before game week 29, and you can put out a very solid bench boost team in game week 29, you actually unlock the wildcard to be used to set up the rest of your season. Now, I think probably what will be the default strategy for most people will be free hit 29, wildcard 33, bench boost 34, and then play out the rest of your season. That will probably be the standard strategy that most people will go with, because it looks like it is going to be the easiest strategy. Now, I'm going to be bench boosting 29 without using the wildcard. I'm planning to use the wildcard to dead end into 32 and wildcard in 33. Probably. I might even look at, depending on how the 32 fixtures fall, I might bring that wildcard back into, say, 30 or 31, but at the moment it's still looking like 33 will be the optimal. So I just dead end out of the bench boost with all of that value on my bench, make a couple of trades so that I can deal with game week 32, wildcard in 33, and just completely ignore game week 34. So set up the wildcard for 33, 35, 36, 37, 38 for the rest of the season, and then free hit in game week 34 so that I do not have to worry about setting up a bench boost for this wildcard. This is why in the video last week I said I think that wildcarding out of a bench boost is the optimal play in most seasons, because you can get rid of all that money that's sitting on your bench and put it back into your starting 11. Now, what's been working so well for me since game week 17, when we all got unlimited transfers, is I immediately jumped onto the threemium, and that threemium strategy has done me extremely well. I think I'm about, before this game week, I was about top 200k for that second chance game week 17 league that everyone got put into. And so my strategy is break the threemium now to build my bench for the across the next couple of game weeks to bench boost in game week 29, then dead end out of the bench boost to start just getting a team together for 32 with lots of players to select from, because I'll have all of my funds spread across the team. I can then wildcard out of that team and set up my threemium team to run out the rest of the season again, and then free hit in game week 34 in order to just not have to worry about setting up the bench boost, which I think most other managers will be aiming to do with their given strategies. So the current risks and disadvantages that I can see for bench boosting in 29 is, one of the key players that I will be eyeing up here is Ivan Toney at Brentford, and he's on 8 yellow cards, and so my plan is to probably wait. I'm not going to bring him in this week. I'll probably look to bring him in game week 27, see if he's still on 8 yellow cards. If he is still on 8 yellow cards, I'll probably take the punt, bring in Ivan Toney for his double. He now plays in 28, so it was a tentative blank before, but now he has definitely got a game. It's against Leicester at home, so he fills a slot. He fills a slot for blank game week 28. He then doubles again in 29, and he's got some okay fixtures kind of running out: Newcastle, Wolves, and in game week 32 he plays Aston Villa at home. However, I do not suspect that I will be able to use Ivan Toney for all of that, because if he does pick up 10 yellow cards before game week 32, I believe, he will get a 2-game suspension. So it's not a 1-game suspension this time around, it's a 2-game suspension. And so a lot of this does hinder on Ivan Toney. My backup player is probably someone like João Felix over at Chelsea. The other disadvantage is I will be fielding 4 single game week players in the bench boost. Game week 28, I might only be playing with 7 players. So that is a big consideration to make for most of you out there if you are playing around with a strategy. Game week 28 will be a little bit hard to navigate doing without using any chips or any hits up until this point. But when we go through the transfer planner, you'll be able to see that I've got most of the key players for game week 28 locked in as part of my plans. And so, similar to game week 25, although I might be slightly down on 1 or 2 spots in the team, I think I will still score most of the key points, and the only difference to people who are using other chips out there is they will be bringing in random players to fill up their 11 strong squads. The other big thing that I should note, is between game week 28 and game week 29 is the international break. And so there is risk of injury across this period. So we could be building towards a bench boost here to bench boost in 29, and then some of our key assets get or pick up injuries in the international break. We will just have everyone's going to be in that same boat. Obviously, free hitters do not have to deal with that. They can just choose from the set of players that are not injured. But what you will also find is you'll get a lot of players in game week 28 picking up little niggles and knocks in and around that period, so that they do not have to go away on international break duty and will be ready for game week 29. So you might see some injuries popping up around there that aren't actually injuries at all. So do keep an eye on those players and how they go off the pitch. If they stretch it off, yeah, they're probably pretty injured. If they look fine, then they could just be eyeing up a way to dodge that international fixture. So those are most of the disadvantages, I think. I just very quickly check my notes. Yeah. And the other advantage to this strategy that I should pick up is a free hit in game week 34 instead of a bench boost in 34 currently looks like it might be stronger. Now, it looks like Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Man United, Newcastle and Tottenham are all likely going to double in game week 34. So if we are free hitting, these are the teams where all the expensive assets are, right? So if we free hit, we'll be able to fill up a very strong 11 players from very good teams that will double in 34. Whereas all those players that are looking to bench boost in 34 by wildcarding into it in say game week 33, they will be filling up their bench boost teams with the likes of a McNeil from game week 25. So you'll be looking for super cheap players that don't score very well, hoping to get lucky in this double game week, or they will be going for stronger players that potentially only have single game weeks, and so you get no real benefit. Like I'm already planning to go into game week 29 with single game weekers that are from strong teams that do not double, and so I think in game week 34 we'll just be able to load up heavy on all these awesome assets in 34 while still having a pretty good structured wild card to ride out the rest of the season. So we don't know exactly what, this is speculative of course, because we don't know what the 32 blank is going to look like yet, and we also don't know what the 34 double is going to look like yet, but it is looking pretty likely that I think free hit in 34 will be the strongest way to use the free hit, and bench boost in 29 looks to be the strongest there. So if I go into the transfer planner, so this is my team as of right now. As you can see, 2 free transfers because I saved one from last week. The start of this is the same as the video last week, which is Salah out to McAllister from Brighton. Bring him in a week early before his double in 27 to Leeds away and Crystal Palace at home. He's playing West Ham at home this week, which is a pretty good fixture for Brighton. He's now playing in the number 10, so he's just in behind the striker. He's no longer playing in central defensive midfield because he has taken over Lallana's spot, as Lallana is injured and injured for quite a while. So Lallana is not coming back anytime soon. I'm expecting that McAllister is going to continue playing in number 10, and he's on penalties. This one trade down allows the dispersal of all of the funds out of the threemium. So my threemium at the moment is Haaland, Kane, Salah. We get rid of Salah and we start upgrading around the squad in order to build a really strong bench boost for 29. I will be using both of my free transfers this week. That is because Newcastle, who I'm holding, are playing Man City. I want to bench both Newcastle assets, as you'll see Trippier and Botman down here. We would bring Rashford back in for Andreas, obviously, so Rashford would be playing. And we'll be getting rid of Bueno for James from Chelsea. And the reason we're bringing in James from Chelsea is great fixture this week, Leeds at home. Next week, Leicester away. Maybe a little bit more tricky. Leicester have been looking pretty attacking lately. They do play in game week 28. That is locked in, and it is at home to Everton, so that's a great fixture in 28. They double in 29, Aston Villa at home, Liverpool at home. 30, they've got a great game, Wolves away, and 31, they've got an okay fixture, Brighton at home. And so this is, my fixture planning goes out to 31, which is where I'm going to start dead ending. So anyone that I bring in now that has good fixtures in 30 and 31 are also very high on the agenda. Because obviously we don't want to just set this all up and take a whole bunch of hits in 30 and 31 and just spend all the points that we just gained in that bench boost. So that would be my 2 free transfers In game week 26, it'll still leave me 5.4 million in the bank to spread out over the next couple of weeks. I'll be playing with double Chelsea defence of Kepa and James at home to Leeds. Tarkowski will be playing away to Nottingham Forest. This is why I bought him in a couple of weeks ago, because I wanted to bench Botman in 26 and by holding on to him. Shaw is away to Liverpool. I actually think United are going to do the business in Liverpool this week. Liverpool have been looking pretty rough, and that Real Madrid score last week just goes to show what a decent squad will do to Liverpool when they come up against them. So Luke Shaw, more than happy to play. I've got my triple Arsenal attack, which is only going to be triple Arsenal attack for this game week, all at home to Bournemouth. I'm pretty sure Nketiah will play his second game in the double, and hopefully this fixture in 26. It will be Nketiah's last week in my team. As I said, I bought McAllister in. Rashford's away to Liverpool. Haaland at home to Newcastle this week, and Harry Kane away to Wolves. So we're going into 26 with a pretty strong squad. Game week 27, we would then be benching Tarkowski to play Trippier. McAllister has his double, which is Leeds away, Crystal Palace at home. My triple Arsenal attack is all away to Fulham, but I will be selling Nketiah. The rest of the team reads, both my Manchester United assets are at home to Southampton, which is Rashford and Shaw. Trippier's playing Wolves at home. Both my Chelsea assets, defensive assets, are playing Leicester away. McAllister's got the double. Triple Arsenal playing Fulham away. Kane is playing Nottingham Forest at home. It's a great fixture for Kane. And Haaland is away to Crystal Palace. We'll figure out what we do with the bench a little bit later. But assuming that Ivan Toney has not picked up his 9th yellow card, it will be safe to bring him in for this 27 double, because, well, if he picks up a yellow card in the first game and then another yellow card in the second game, he will actually miss game week 28 and the first game of 29, at which point we will probably pull an audible and go for someone like João Felix, bring him in so he has a game in 28 against Everton, and then doubles in 29. So let's hope that Ivan Toney stays out of the bad books and we can bring him in for this double. If we do not bring him in for this double, we will probably look, if he's on 9 yellow cards, I will probably look to just bring in João Felix instead, but I do think that Ivan Toney, if he survives all these games, will score more points. So that's why I actually want to bring Ivan Toney in instead of Felix. His double is Everton away and Southampton away. So 2 away fixtures, but against okay opponents to be going up against. So we only use 1 transfer in game week 27. Again, we have a very strong team. We've got a little bit of a benching headache in terms of defense, but all in all looking pretty good. Game week 28 is the big blank. Spurs currently still play in 28, but as of tomorrow we will know whether or not they blank. They will likely blank, so I'll just put the expensive assets on the bench that I will be holding through, which will be Haaland, Kane and Rashford. Let's just assume they all blank. This would be my squad without any transfers, and I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players definitely playing in 28. Which is actually 2 less than what I just played with in 25, but considering this is actually going to be quite a big blank game week, and I probably have most of the key assets apart from maybe a 3rd Arsenal player, on the whole this will probably be alright. We might look at making a transfer this week as long as we can set up a bit better for game week 29. What we might look at is someone like James Maddison in early, which would be Andreas to Maddison, who's got a game in 28, plays Brentford away, and then we'll double in 29. So we can bring in an extra player. We'll have 9 playing players in game week 28. And then we go forward to game week 29. This is the big double. Haaland has got a single. Kane has currently got a single. Tarkowski has got a single. And so we'll just put the single game weekers on the bench just so you can kind of see exactly how this is going to line up. We've got one free transfer, which is going to be Tarkowski out to Stupinan for his double. So we'll put maybe Odegaard on the bench. So it looks like I'm going to play with 4 single game week players. Haaland at home to Liverpool. Kane away to Everton, although that could be a double for Kane, and in which case he will probably be my captain in game week 29. But he's still got a single at the moment. My 2 Arsenal attackers of Saka and Odegaard, both playing Leeds at home, and they are my only 4 single game week players. Everyone else has a double. So to read it out, Kepa in net, James in defence, both play Aston Villa at home and Liverpool at home, so that's an okay double. Maybe not the best defensive double because they have to play Liverpool. My 2 Newcastle defenders both have a double of Trippier and Botman playing Manchester United at home and West Ham away. My Brighton double up is McAllister and Stupinan, both playing Brentford at home and Bournemouth away, so really good double for Brighton. My Manchester United players of Rashford and Shaw are playing Newcastle away and Brentford at home. That's actually a pretty good double for United. Might even be a pretty good defensive double, as Newcastle haven't been scoring a lot of goals, but they are a very strong defensive unit. My Leicester double up of Maddison and Ward are away to Crystal Palace and at home to Aston Villa. And hopefully, fingers crossed, Tony up front for his double against Brighton away and Manchester United away. That might end up being João Felix, and this will be obviously the week where I bench boost. Now, if you take a look at this bench boost team and the single game weekers here and compare it to a likely bench boost in 34, and then do the exact same thing with, if I do bench boost this week, what will my free hit in 34 look like, and compare that free hit in 34 to a free hit in 29, that will give you the best idea of how best to use these chips. And I think bench boost 29 and free hit 34 looks like the optimal usage of these 2 chips. And more importantly, we do have to go slightly past game week 29 in order to make sure we're not just absolutely shooting ourselves in the foot. Game week 30 is still looking very strong. We would probably be playing something like this, I would imagine. So I won't go through the full team on screen. The tricky games is I would still have double Arsenal attack against Liverpool away, but again, I think Arsenal are just such a good quality team that they will show up exactly how poor Liverpool have been lately, and so I don't actually think that's such a bad game for Arsenal. And everyone else has got pretty easy fixtures. United against Everton, Chelsea against Wolves, Newcastle against Brentford, Leicester against Bournemouth, Spurs against Brighton, and Haaland against Southampton away. 31 is also looking very strong. If you look at all these fixtures on screen, there's no tricky games here apart from maybe my Brighton assets who will be on the bench against Chelsea away. Maddison is away to Man City, so this might be where we start to dead end by using the 2 free transfers out. And then into game week 32, where no fixture tickers are actually showing exactly who is and isn't likely to play, but this is I actually came up with this plan last week when the double game week 29 was announced, so I've been sitting on these plans for a little while. But game week 32 looks horrific. Looks like everyone in my team might or might not be playing, but again, this will come down to fixture results that come up in future. We'll have to wait a little bit closer to 32 to see exactly how navigatable this will be, but it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's only 8 teams that are definitely playing as of right now, so that's only 4 fixtures. So it is going to be a very big blank game week in 32, and fielding, I will almost certainly be fielding less than 11 players in this team for my strategy. So I think, I'll just very quickly check my notes, that is all the points that I actually wanted to bring up about this strategy. Now I'm pretty much locked in. I will almost certainly be bench boosting in 29 unless something horrific happens in that international break. If something horrific happens in that international break, I will be able to pivot out of that plan because A, I'm not spending any chips to do this. I'm not using my wildcard. I'm not booking in my free hit. The transfers that I am making all serve a purpose across these games right up until game week 29. If I find that everyone's injured for some reason, I can still free hit in 29, and I haven't wasted any chips before that, and I also haven't spent any hits up until this point in order to set up this bench boost in game week 29. So that's the final advantage that I wanted to really explain here. A lot of people are saying, well, it's actually really risky to set up for a bench boost in 29, and it is, especially if you're choosing to wildcard in 27 in order to do so. Because if you wildcard 27, set up for an optimal team in 29, and then 3 or 4 of your players somehow get injured across that international break, that's where that risk comes in. But this whole strategy and plan doesn't require any of that. So we can aim for the most optimal usage of chips and then pivot or call an audible if you're an NFL fan and move away from it in future. So it allows a lot more freedom of choice on the coming game weeks moving forward. So that's pretty much the strategy for bench boosting in game week 29, why I think it might be optimal. In order to go through of game week 25 review, as of right now I'm about 100,000 places down in the rankings. I still have 6 players to play, including my captain, which is Saka. I've captain Saka, so I've got triple Arsenal left to play against Everton. That's Nketiah, Saka and Odegaard. I've got Salah, who's still got his game against Wolves at home. And I have Tarkowski away to Arsenal and Bueno away to Liverpool in defence. Now, I think I might actually sneak away with potentially my 10th green arrow in a row. So I've had 9 consecutive green arrows in my team so far. I'm currently on my first red. I'm really hoping that I can get to 10 consecutive in a row. But I was always probably pushing my luck a little bit when I opted to play for 10 men for future games. So potentially giving up my 10th green arrow, which would have been a pretty cool accolade to be able to claim. But I think the overall points benefit for my team is more important than locking in 10 green arrows in a row in one season. So it's been a pretty poor scoring week. The main reason that I'm actually currently down on points at the moment is there was a lot of Haaland captainers out there. He came away with 1 goal and 1 assist. So every time I choose not to captain him, he seems to go and do some business and hurt me. And that is the main reason that I'm actually down on points this week. If I had a captain Haaland, I'd probably be still be sitting on a green. I think I'm about 4 or 5 points off my safety score at a moment, but I'm more than happy to go into this fixture, the next set of fixtures, with Saka as my captain at home to Everton. The remaining players are all playing each other probably best case here is Nketiah goes and scores massive, because he is probably my biggest differential still in my team. And ideally, Bueno, if he keeps a clean sheet, that will really serve me well, because I'll get the clean sheet for Bueno, and all of those people out there that have captained Salah will obviously be blanking if Wolves happen to keep a clean sheet. Everywhere else around the pitch has been horrific. Kepa 1 point, Tarkowski 1 point, Bueno 2 points, Odegaard and Saka both 3 points, Salah 3 points, Andreas 1 point, and Nketiah surprise benching out of the blue 1 point. Not cool. Kane though, just consistent Kane, been in my team since forever, and he just keeps trickling along really well. And Haaland with the top score on 10 points. So that's it for this video. If you did happen to make it this far through the video, please do consider giving it a like if you like the content. And if you are new around here, hit the big red subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified about more FPL content coming your way. And until next time, I'll catch you again soon. Cheers.